Howdy, y'all. It's Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. It's time to talk about Jurassic Park 3. And overall, if I would rate this one, if like Jurassic Park 1's basically like a 10 out of 10 or a 9.5 out of 10, this one's like solid 8.5 or 9 out of 10 pretty easily. I think overall it works really, really well. I think we should just always take it with it was a blessing to have because the newer movies have not been as good as that one. Yeah, so let's talk about it. What makes the first movie or the third movie so good? Well, let's just run through. It starts with this interesting scene. Well, there's two like basic starting scenes. We have Dr. Grant and Ellie meeting again, and Ellie's got a family and all this, and not with Dr. Grant. Kind of interesting. And she has kids, and they're, at least one kid. I can't. No, there is a baby. The baby is not quite like focal point of the film. There's that, and then we have another scene with a young man with a friend of the family or something, and they are parasailing next to Dinosaur Island, right? And everything goes wrong, and they end up landing on the island, and that's all we see for then. And eventually we get this whole setup of Dr. Grant is still digging and stuff, but there's, again, like concerns about the dig being able to be funded. Very interesting because he's got an intern, basically, Billy, who's pretty good at his job, but is pretty new. And he does this interesting 3D printer of sorts that prints a Velociraptor's like sound, like bone or instrument inside of its body that blows air through to make different sounds to be able to talk with each other. It's really interesting. And you go, once again, we have a movie that actually gives us a plot device that sets up for future things. And Dr. Grant also has there is a beginning scene too where he's lecturing and presenting about stuff, and it jokes around about going, hey, you can ask me questions, but nothing about Jurassic Park, and also nothing about the incident in LA because I wasn't there, which is really funny because there's very limited questions after that. But really cool, really interesting, really good storytelling there, and setting up that Dr. Grant doesn't want to go back to this island ever. And so then he gets approached by a very wealthy man and his wife who want to see dinosaurs and not land, but just observe. And so he refuses at first, but then he gets shown a check amount, or is willing to be offered whatever he wants to have for payment. And it's rather interesting because then it gets Dr. Grant involved, and he takes Billy along because he's like, fine, you're going since you got me into this whole even conversation at all. And that's really interesting because it sets up then the plane ride, and you start getting this idea that there's more going on this plane ride based on what you see of some of the people that are going to be taking them. And once they're on the ride, we have this interesting dream Dr. Grant has of raptors talking. And it's funny because it's just like how messed up he is from the whole previous situation. And then they actually land on the island, and Dr. Grant tries to stop him and gets knocked out. And they land. When he wakes up, he realizes what they're doing, and they're calling him a bullhorn. It's bad. And so then we get into just kind of standard good Jurassic Park insanity of this is a small group of people that don't know what they're doing, and Dr. Grant is the only one that has an idea at all, and they get attacked by a Spinosaurus, as they call it. Spinosaurus aegypticus, I believe, was what they called it from the fossil where it was found. And Dr. Grant at some point makes a note later on in the film going what it is, but also that wasn't on InGen's list of dinosaurs that they made, so what else was InGen doing? And it kind of just hit me as the point of InGen was already working towards not just a park for the immediate, but also future attractions to the park. And some just new dinosaurs that they were going to introduce later, for extra exhibits, but also bigger, more dangerous, more powerful stuff that would be more interesting to see, but also could create some very serious issues. Rather interesting. And so the beginning of the film is really trying to survive after the plane crashes when they try to take off, and the Spinosaurus gets it and attacks it and causes them to wreck the plane. And then they're in survival mode, but also still trying to find what they find out is the man and wife's son, but they're not actually married, and he's not rich. He's actually runs a paint and tile shop, and the mercenaries that they hired weren't actually like legit people. And so come to find out, there's not really the money that's needed to pay Dr. Grant for any of this. And so they're on this island that's super dangerous with no real reward to speak of at all coming. Really interesting. Like, wow. Dr. Grant just goes, not only not getting paid, but I'm here on Jurassic Park Island again, a different island, but still. And so we proceed to have epic stuff between Spinosaurus and showing that it's stronger than a T-Rex by defeating one very easily in a way. And it's rather sad, but that's kind of where we're at with that concept of what's going on. And so Jurassic Park, man, it's an intense movie. So interesting. Jurassic Park 3 just does well. But eventually they come upon nests and realize that they're in a raptor's nest. And we find out later Billy actually takes some eggs from them. That's why the raptors are actually chasing them throughout the rest of the film. And the Spinosaurus is chasing them and also eats one of their people who has the satellite phone, and apparently eats it whole. And it's a kind of a running joke through the film of you hear the jingle of the radio phone or the satellite phone. And there's a point where the satellite phone's going off and the Spinosaurus is just staring at them, just looking at them. And it's super weird because it's like, why would it just be staring? What? Please explain. And there's no explanation because it starts running after them after they start running. But it's like, wouldn't it already be chasing them? Yeah. It's kind of a minor thing, but it's just funny. So they actually end up in a pterodactyl area, and Billy gets attacked and presumably left for dead, while Dr. Grant has the eggs during this. And that's when he finds out, when they get into the pterodactyl area first off, like the initial entry area. Man, super good, because they saved the parachute thing, the paragliding thing for this moment, and they actually do use it, and Billy presumably gets killed at this point, and it's really interesting. And they do, Dr. Grant does find the kid earlier on in the film, obviously, and it's really neat to see that he survived and he started to learn just ways to keep safe from other things and knows the dangers of the thing. And he's apparently read some of Dr. Grant's books and stuff while he's been on the island, because there's not much else to do. It's good. Like, it really is good. Like, this isn't an annoying kid. It's like he survived where his friend didn't make it from the parasailing, and realized that there are some tricks to staying alive in a Jurassic Park type area. It's good. It's really good. And just neat. The raptors are very creepy in this. It's good. When they're using animatronics in the film, it's really awesome. When they're just doing CGI, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. It just kind of depends on the moment there. But overall, like, the animatronic sections where they really are using that, very good. Very good. So we get further on into this, and they find a boat down near the shore, and the Spinosaurus once again attacks and almost drowns them. And Dr. Grant gets to make a phone call to Ellie, and the little kid answers. And it's a cute, funny scene, but yet it's a little disconcerting because it's like, oh my gosh, will he take it to her? And he's able to talk to her kind of, but I can't even remember what all words he gets out to tell her. But it doesn't seem like she would entirely infer the full message, but does make an assumption of where is Dr. Grant. And because I don't know if he says dinosaurs or not, but it's like raining heavily. It's on a satellite phone. The connection's terrible, that kind of stuff. So somehow she figures out where they are. Very interesting. I think at most that might be the weakest spot in the film in a way, but yet I actually am okay with it because it's interesting. So yeah, just an interesting piece of the puzzle that's not bad. It's just potentially a little confusing depending on what she can hear on the phone call. But it makes sense that Ellie would know, all right, he wouldn't call unless it was something insane. And if he even says dinosaur at all, or she hears the sound of a dinosaur, then she knows this is bad. So anyway, just a small thing that might be a plot point, but it depends kind of on exactly what's said. If you've watched the movie, let me know again, because I watched it just recently and I cannot remember for sure exactly what is said there. But yeah, really interesting there. So they get to the shoreline and there's a guy with a bullhorn, and it's rather interesting. First off, how many people survive in this film, kind of impressive. And when they start yelling at the guy, don't do that, because the last time they did that is when the Spinosaurus attacked and everything was bad. The whole squads of the military show up and roll up to the beach. It's like you can't see them somehow, but yet they just suddenly appear out of nowhere. It's kind of funny. And helicopters and things. And so they get there and get everybody on board. So you got the mom and dad survived, and the kid survives, and Dr. Grant survives. And then they get on the airplane, the helicopter, and they go, is this one of yours? And you look over and it's Billy, who's injured and stuff, but somehow they found him and he's okay. It doesn't actually do much past this, because the only last thing we really see is they're, flying away from the island, and the pterodactyls are actually loose, and they're like, huh, new world, and that kind of thing. And that's about it. And you go, that's going to cause some problems somewhere. But I think overall it kind of gets back more to the roots of the original Jurassic Park film, especially than the second one, of scary, intense. Dinosaurs are very seriously massive, powerful creatures that should be admired and respected from a distance. And that's about it. And I think it just hits more like the first film than definitely the second one, and overall is a positive piece of the Jurassic Park franchise comparatively now to number 2 and also the next 3 movies in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think if you haven't watched Jurassic Park 3 in a while, go back and watch it and enjoy it, because sometimes I think now that we've gotten more recent movies, some of the older films actually are better than what we thought. But yeah, what do you think about Jurassic Park 3? Good? Like it? Love it? Hate it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me. Like, share, and subscribe. It's a fun conversation to have about what's good or bad about Jurassic Park 3. And especially now that we have 3 more movies after it. What do you think? How does it hold up? I've been Cody from The Keepers of Nerdom. Take care.